It was a rough road to hoe when you grew up, but you wouldn't swap those experiences because it helped to make you the person that you are. That's where I grew up because my mother died when I was 8. And then we kids were sorted out to the relatives. And my brother and I were raised by the Kellers. And Catherine, my sister, was raised by the Eberlys. And Elsie Althouse adopted Helen, and that she was like a mother to her. And Helen was only 6 days old when my mother died. My mother died with complications of childbirth, and she was a soprano singer and sang in the choir. And I will never forget, I can hear her voice at Christmas when they had a processional and they sang Silent Night, and I can hear her voice above the rest, you know. That's sad. But she was only 25 when she died. Of course, my grandfather Keller was a very, very lovable man. And of all my relatives, I think I revere him. I can remember things that we discussed. And one time he was holding me and a fly came and sat on my hand. And then he sang this song, "Baby bye, here's a fly, let us watch him, you and I."
But those are the neat memories.
Anyhow, then when I graduated, I was all ready to go to work on a farm. I figured if I worked a year, then I could earn enough money, then I could go to school. Well, then the man had saved money for his daughter, and she got pregnant and had to get married, and he was so mad that he came and threw $300 on my washer. I was getting ready to hire myself out on a farm. I said, "Here, you go to school."
How did he know you? How did you know him?
That's right. I remember that part of the story.
Yeah.
And what was it like to take a young girl from Lancaster County and go to school at Drexel in Philadelphia?
Well, they appreciated my wit and they made fun of my accent, but I didn't care.
Anything that you remember about Philadelphia from that time? Things that struck you as, wow, that's really something.
Well, I would go to these lectures, you know, and then I would comment. Sometimes, that you know how it is, people ask you your opinion of things. Well, my accent and some of the things that I had to tell about were interesting, and this lady came one time after class and she said she would like to have me to her house for dinner. And it was in not a good part of Philadelphia, kind of a righty place. And on her wall she had these, the feet of some seabird. Well, of course, I never thought of hanging anything like that on a wall, and I must have remarked about it. Oh, and she laughed. She got a big kick out of that, you know. And she stayed friends with me, and she kept introducing me to people. I was a typical Pennsylvania Dutch specimen, you know.
Yes.
Did you ever make it over to Europe yourself? Did you ever get to visit?
Oh, yes, but I didn't. I wasn't in a position that I could go out on my own and explore. I went on a children's literature tour once, and once I went as a chaperone to students, and I had some wonderful experiences, but I never really barged out on my own, you know, to have. I was awfully fond of Scandinavia.
Wow.
I love Scandinavia.
Were you able to make it back to Germany, to the Black Forest area?
Yes, yes.
And did it feel familiar in some strange way?
There were places in south of Munich where I could talk Pennsylvania Dutch to people. And when I found somebody like that, they didn't want to let you go. And one time I had to catch a bus to go back to where I was supposed to be. I had gone on a little shopping trip with some ladies. And this lady followed me. She even took one step up on the bus. Oh, she said, "Man kann's nicht glauben." She could hardly believe that I could talk to her, and yet I wasn't actually German, you know. But she was so pleased. Those Germans were of a good, solid stock.
I have
and they had that work ethic. And I don't care which branch of the family, there's always somebody who's get up and go and made something of himself.
We'll let you know if we find one of those.
There's another question. Oh, how did you meet Harold?
Well, I graduated from college, then I couldn't get a job. So I had to work in a shirt factory. And I used to see Harold around once in a while, and I thought it was pretty nice looking. And so one Saturday, I went to stay overnight with a girl in Ephrata, and we went to the movies. And after the movies, when we came out, there was a sudden thunderstorm.
Do you remember what you saw?
Huh?
Do you remember what you saw that night?
What film?
No.
Well, anyway, we went into some doorway to get out of the pouring down rain, and two guys came rushing into the same doorway to get out of the rain, and it was Harold and his brother.
Aww.
And then when they found out that we had walked uptown, they offered to walk us home.
As gentlemen
And
do.
that was before Harold had a car, you know. And I was 18, I guess. And, well, then a couple nights later, I was in bed, and I heard somebody say to the girl next door, "Is Dorothy at home?" And she said, "Oh, she's married and lives at Akron." And she had a sister, Dorothy, who was married.
Oh.
And boy, when I heard that, I thought, well, I better get down there and play
And make sure that
my property.
Yeah. Oh. And
So-
was it Harold?
I ran down, and then it was Harold. And he wanted me to go. Well, there was this old man lived in the mountains, and he had 3 dogs. You know, I know, and come to Calico, and they were living under his shack. And one time he heard something sniffling and snuffling around his fireplace. And he had his hatchet beside his bed, and so he took his hatchet and he slung it, and somebody and jumped out the window, broke the glass. And he got up and he lit his lantern, and he looked, and here was a hairy tail. And dumb like, he cooked it and he ate it. Well, he went back to bed, and about 2 o'clock at night I hear something scrabbling up his log cabin. I want my taily-po. Give me my taily-po. And he looked, and there was these great big eyes at the fireplace. And he was getting scared, and he didn't move. He was so just paralyzed. And the thing came, and he could feel it climbing up the bottom of his bed like a cat climbing up the covers. And these big eyes were coming, and said, "Give me my taily-po. You have my taily-po." Oh, and the guy's heart was beating as fast, it was almost jumping. And he tried to call his dogs. Come to Calico. And the dogs came and chased the thing away. And he went back to bed. Well, a couple hours later, here it was again, climbing up the side of his house. I want my taily-po. Give me my taily-po. And he tried to call his dogs. But what he didn't know was that that thing had chased them into the hills, and they never came back. So he was just shaking and quaking, and he was afraid. And finally he felt it climbing up the covers, and he saw its big fiery eyes coming toward him, and it was saying, "Give me..." "Take it," he said. And then you have all the kids jump out of their skin.
Yeah.
Swammel en poisse hen så gikk mors esse. Og av seg hen net gikk da kesselvæsje. Nå har jeg vel en dag sagt, jeg kjenner mors, at jeg klarer mors have. Well, hat sie gesagt, ich koche dann einen Kessel voll Mosch. Und sie haben den Mosch gegessen, es war alles gut. Und dann hat sie gesagt, na, aber ist der Kessel? Well, hat gesagt, aber ist nicht. Hat sie gesagt, was sie weiß noch nicht. Wel, sie haben ausgemacht, na, als erstes schwätzt, selber muss der Kessel wischen. Ja, sind ins Bett und der nächste Mal sind sie wach geworden und sind nicht aufgestanden, sind im Bett geblieben. Und die Nachbarsfrau, sie war so, sie hat andere Leute Business machen wollen. Und sie ist gekommen und sie hat ins Fenster reingeguckt, da war sie im Bett gelegen. Und sie ist rein und gesagt, was ist letzt? Für was stehen wir nicht auf? Keine Ahnung. Bell, hat sie gesagt. Sind da krank? Wel, ich denke, ich muss gehen verbrechen. Und, weil er sollte nicht wenig bleiben, da hat sie dann noch was gesagt, du bleibst da und du watschst sie, weil ich da brechen kann. Alright, hat gesagt, aber ich tue es nicht für nichts. Well, sie hat an die Wand geguckt und da war ein Kot gegangen und hat gesagt, well, du kannst da einen Kot haben. Und die Frau ist aus dem Bett geschoben und sagt, du gibst mal meinen Kot nicht weg. Well, that was the end of that.
Well,
So what's the translation? Were you a leader too? Were you a Girl Scout leader?
Oh yeah, for 20 years.
I did not know that.
We used to go camping, and we went to the Girl Scout camp, and they had wooden platforms, and then the Lions Club had tents, and the Lions would put, the fathers of the girls would put the tents up, and then we would stay there. And then one time, somebody had to go to. I used to always have. Before we went to bed, I'd say, now this is the last call to go to the latrine. You have to go to the toilet, you have to go now. And if you have to go later, I won't go with you because I'm going to go to bed. Well, you know how the kids were, they would horse around. And well, anyway, one time one of them went to the toilet and she came running back and she was as white as a sheet. Oh, she said, there's something hairy in the bathroom. Oh, I said, get out. Yeah. I could feel it on my bare feet. She said, it's hairy. Well, I had to get up and I went down and it was a little possum.
Oh.
I was shivering.
Yeah. I didn't know possums are that
Yeah, right. And I read everything that came down the pike, just everything. Those were the days.
That's wrong.